What happens when the Supreme Court blocks a president's economic weapon? But the president immediately fires back with something even bigger. That's exactly what just happened in the United States. In a dramatic legal and economic showdown, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down key Trump-era tariffs, a major blow to one of the most aggressive trade strategies in modern American history. But within days, a new tariff wave was announced. Higher, broader, and potentially more disruptive to global trade. So what's really happening? Who wins? Who loses? And why does this matter far beyond the United States? Let's break it down. The story begins with a ruling that could reshape presidential power for decades. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled against a set of tariffs that had been imposed using emergency executive authority. The administration had relied on a law typically used for sanctions and national emergencies, arguing that trade imbalances and economic threats justified sweeping import taxes. But the court disagreed. In a strong majority opinion, the justices made it clear tariff powers primarily belong to Congress, not the president acting alone under broad emergency claims. This wasn't just about trade. This was about constitutional power. The ruling sent a message that executive authority has limits, even in economic warfare. And instantly, the global markets reacted. When the decision dropped, investors initially saw it as a sign of relief. If tariffs were blocked, import costs might fall. Retailers could breathe. Global supply chains might stabilize. But that optimism didn't last long. Because uncertainty is poison to markets. Stocks wobbled. Currency markets shifted. Safe haven assets like gold ticked up. Cryptocurrency saw volatility spikes. Why? Because the ruling didn't end the trade conflict. It escalated it. Businesses suddenly faced massive legal confusion. Would previously paid tariffs be refunded? Would new tariffs replace the old ones? Would trade partners retaliate? No one had clear answers. And then came the twist. Rather than stepping back, the administration pivoted. Fast. Instead of using the same emergency powers that were struck down, officials turned to a different legal tool, one that allows temporary tariffs under specific trade provisions. And the new number stunned analysts. A 15% broad-based tariff. Not targeted. Not limited. Not symbolic. Broad. This wasn't just a legal workaround. It was a strategic escalation. The message was clear. Trade pressure isn't going away. It's being restructured. To understand the gravity of this moment, you have to zoom out. Tariffs are not just taxes. They are geopolitical leverage. They affect manufacturing competitiveness, consumer prices, diplomatic relationships, currency strength, election year politics, and global alliances. For years, the U.S. has used tariffs as both economic protection and strategic bargaining tools. But this legal battle raises deeper questions. How much authority should a president have over trade? Should economic emergencies justify unilateral action? And what happens when courts step into trade wars? This is a constitutional tug-of-war layered on top of a global economic standoff. Let's talk real-world impact. When tariffs rise, importers pay more. When importers pay more, companies adjust. And usually, consumers eventually feel it. But here's the important nuance. Prices don't always drop immediately when tariffs disappear. Companies often keep prices steady instead of cutting them. Margins adjust. Supply contracts remain locked in. Shipping costs stay volatile. So even if courts strike down tariffs, you might not see instant price relief at the store. What you will see, though, is uncertainty. And uncertainty slows investment. It delays hearing. It complicates supply planning. It freezes expansion decisions. That's the invisible economic cost. Now zoom out globally. Europe is watching carefully. Many European exporters had already adjusted to previous tariff frameworks. If U.S. trade rules keep changing, investment planning becomes risky. Asian markets reacted cautiously. Some nations may benefit if the new flat tariff is actually lower than previous targeted penalties. Others may face new barriers. China, as expected, criticized the instability, arguing that unpredictable trade policy disrupts global recovery. Emerging markets are particularly vulnerable. Why? Because when major economies enter trade tension cycles, commodity demand shifts, currency volatility increases, capital flows retreat to safer assets, and that can destabilize weaker economies quickly. This isn't just about U.S. imports. It's about global trade architecture. One of the most explosive unresolved issues. Refunds. Billions, potentially over $100 billion, in collected tariffs may now face legal challenges. If courts determine those collections were unlawful, refund battles could drag on for years. That creates another layer of financial unpredictability. Companies may file claims. Government budgets could be affected. Appeals could climb back up the court system. Trade policy is now entangled in prolonged litigation. And that means this story is far from over. Let's be honest. Trade is political. Tariffs are often framed as defending domestic jobs. Critics call them consumer taxes. Supporters call them economic shields. This Supreme Court ruling injects the judiciary directly into that debate. Some lawmakers applaud the decision as a defense of constitutional balance. Others argue that limiting executive flexibility weakens America's ability to respond quickly to economic threats. And in an election cycle, trade policy becomes messaging fuel. Is America protecting its industries or isolating itself? The narrative battle will be intense. Here's the deeper strategic question. Are we entering a new era of structural trade tension? Over the past decade, globalization has shifted. Supply chains are being reshored. Countries are prioritizing domestic production. Strategic industries, semiconductors, energy, AI hardware are increasingly protected. This legal clash doesn't reverse that trend. It may actually reinforce it. Because now, instead of broad emergency tariffs, administrations may rely more on structured trade investigations, targeted industry protections, national security justifications, congressional partnerships. Trade friction isn't disappearing. It's evolving. Here are the key scenarios to watch. 1. Further court battles. Appeals and refund cases could reshape how trade authority is defined. 2. Congressional action. Lawmakers could attempt to clarify or expand presidential trade powers. 3. International negotiations. Trading partners may push for long-term agreements to reduce unpredictability. 4. Market stabilization or more volatility. If new tariffs stick, markets adjust. If policies keep shifting, volatility continues. The next few months will be critical. What we're witnessing isn't just a tariff dispute. It's a collision between executive power, judicial oversight, global economics, and geopolitical strategy. The Supreme Court tried to draw a constitutional line. The administration redrew the economic map anyway. And now the world is adjusting in real time. This is the modern trade battlefield. And it's far from settled. If you found this breakdown valuable, subscribe for deeper geopolitical analysis every week. Because in today's world, trade policy isn't just economics. It's power. And power shapes everything.